and welcome to Pitboards and Podiums with me, Maya Westwick. In today's episode, we are going to be doing the track guide ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix, so buckle up and let's talk F1. Alright guys, so as I said, today I'm going to be telling you everything that you need to know ahead of this weekend's Chinese Formula 1 Grand Prix. And it's very exciting because, of course, we've not been able to race in China since 2019 because of COVID, and it's all going to be very new and very exciting. We've got a sprint weekend this weekend, so let's get into it. First of all, the timings, especially important this weekend considering we've got the sprint weekend, so the sessions are not just your usual typical sessions. On Friday, we've got FP1 at 11:30am local time, which is 4:30am here in the UK. And then we have got the sprint qualifying session at 3:30pm local time or 8:30am here in the UK. So that is the qualifying session that sets the order for the sprint race on Saturday. On Saturday, we've got the sprint race at 11am local time or 4am here in the UK. And qualifying for the main race at 3pm local time or 8am here in the UK. And then on Sunday, the race start is 3pm local time, 8am in the UK. So again, it's an early weekend. We've had 3 of them and they've progressively got a little bit later and a little bit more sociable for us. So just some stats now about the Chinese Grand Prix and the Shanghai International Circuit. It is going to be a 56-lap race around a 3.387 mile or 5.451 kilometre circuit. There are 16 turns, 9 to the right, 7 to the left, and 2 DRS zones on 2 straights, which is the pit straight and the long straight in sector 3, which the drivers are going to be flat out for just shy of 1.4 kilometres. I think it's literally like 4 metres short of it. The race distance is 189.559 miles or 305.066 kilometres, and the first Formula 1 race in Shanghai was held in 2004 after a $450 million investment to create the Shanghai International Circuit on swampland that had previously been used as rice paddy fields. As I said earlier, we have not raced there since 2019 due to COVID, so it is going to be a relatively new experience, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment because that does actually impact a couple of things. The record for the most poles is held by Sir Lewis Hamilton with 6, and also the record for the most wins is held by Sir Lewis Hamilton with 6. The race lap record is 1 minute 32.238 seconds set by Michael Schumacher in 2004, and the qualifying lap record is 1 minute 31.095 seconds set by Sebastian Vettel in Q3 of the 2018 Grand Prix qualifying. Pole position is situated on the left-hand side of the track, which is the outside down to turn 1, and the start line to turn 1 distance is 267 metres. Turn 1 and 2 are a very unique long right-hander that basically means that the drivers are going to turn 270 degrees on themselves before they turn to the left again. Around 54% of the lap will be completed on full throttle with a maximum speed of 348 kilometers an hour or 216.2 miles an hour, and there are around 51 gear changes per lap. The average time lost in the pit lane is around 17.2 seconds, and the tyre compounds available to the teams are the C2, C3 and C4 tyres. Now this is where it's going to be a little bit interesting with not having driven there for 5 years. Obviously being built on swampland means potentially it might have developed new bumps in the track. They are new cars since we last raced there, new tyre regulations. Obviously now, since 2022, the tyres have been the 18-inch tyres. And also, Pirelli were unable to send assessors to the circuit in advance to determine what tyres to use, which is something that they would usually do somewhere that is a new circuit or somewhere that has not been raced at for a long while. Also, with it being a sprint weekend, only having the 1 practice session, teams don't have the time to gather data that they would normally have in a standard race weekend. So there's a large chance that it's going to be a lot of guesswork. And Pirelli chose the middle range of tyres, the C2, C3, C4, to basically cover any possibility. They also think that graining could be a possibility, as it has been a light issue in the past, especially on the C3 and C4 tyres. Now, Shanghai is a high downforce circuit, which of course is also going to affect the tyres, and it's also a circuit that is often affected by pollution from nearby factories and by heavy rain. And the weather forecast for this weekend is looking like potentially we might get rain in the only practice session that the teams are going to have. Just a few bits of extra information for you about the weekend. So obviously it is, as I've said, a sprint weekend, and it's the first time that we've driven there this era of Formula One. It's the first time at all for 4 drivers on the grid, for Piastri, Tsunoda, Sargent, and of course home hero Zhou Guanyu. And it is of course the first sprint weekend of the 2024 calendar. So with this being the first sprint weekend of the 2024 season, there are some slightly different regulations regarding Parc Fermé, basically because of this whole new order of events. So the cars will enter Parc Fermé ahead of sprint qualifying on Friday night after practice 1. They will then remain in Parc Fermé until after the sprint race on Saturday. So restrictions will be lifted between the sprint race and qualifying for the main race so that the teams can fix any setup problems that they weren't able to sort out with the very limited track time that they've had ahead of all of the action for the main race. So qualifying and the actual main race. Also, you can expect the sprint race to be around 19 laps. The ruling for sprint races is that it's a 100-kilometre distance. It's like a third of the distance of a typical race. So with the track length being 5.5 kilometres, complete laps, you'd need about 19 of them to get you over that 100 kilometres. A fun little fact is that the circuit was actually designed to mirror the appearance of the Chinese character Shang. Obviously, it's in Shanghai. Shang is the first character, like the alphabet. It's the first character of Shanghai, and the layout of the circuit, looking at it satellite view, kind of loosely mirrors it. It's not exact, but it does loosely mirror the character Shang, which I think is interesting. And a little bit of news ahead of this weekend. Fernando Alonso has just announced that he has extended his commitment to Aston Martin with what he has described as the longest contract I've ever signed in my career, and he will be racing for Aston Martin until at least the end of 2026, which he'll be 45 by that time. And he is looking at other roles within Aston Martin beyond that time. So Fernando Alonso is locked in with Aston Martin. Obviously there had been talk about him and Red Bull, but he has shown his commitment to the team. They are a partnership that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, even though it was 5 years ago, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 2019 Chinese Grand Prix, which was actually the 1000th World Championship race in Formula One, and it was the 16th running of the Chinese Grand Prix. I'll tell you the finishing order for the race, anything particularly dramatic that happened, and a little bit about qualifying. It's not going to be as applicable for kind of extracting information from ahead of this weekend as it would have been if it was last year, but it's better than nothing. So Sir Lewis Hamilton won the race with a race time of 1 hour, 32 minutes and 6.35 seconds. Bottas and Vettel completed the podium. Verstappen P4, Leclerc P5, Gasly P6. He had the fastest lap and he was driving for Red Bull at the time. And then everybody from P7 down was at least 1 lap behind. We had Ricciardo, Perez, Raikkonen, Albon, Grosjean, Stroll, Magnussen, Sainz, Giovinazzi, and then Russell and Kubica in the Williams were both 2 laps down. Then we had Lando Norris didn't finish the race on lap 50 due to collision damage from a lap 1 incident that I'll tell you about in a moment. Kvyat didn't finish the race on lap 41, again with collision damage, and Hülkenberg didn't finish the race on lap 16 with a power unit issue. Lando Norris was technically classified as a P18 finisher because he'd completed more than 90% of the race distance, so technically he did finish P18, just 6 laps down. And Norris, Sainz and Kvyat collided at the 4th corner of lap 1, for which Kvyat received a drive-through penalty because he was deemed to be at fault. Basically what he did was, this was when both Norris and Sainz drove for McLaren, he made contact with Sainz, which then sent him torpedoing into Lando Norris and gave him and Norris the damage that ended their race however many laps later. And just to talk about qualifying, last time we raced at Shanghai, Bottas qualified on pole with a pole time of 1 minute 31.547 seconds. Hamilton was on P2 at 0.023 seconds behind. Vettel P3, Leclerc P4, Verstappen P5, Gasly P6, Ricciardo P7, Hülkenberg P8, Magnussen P9 and Grosjean P10. Both of them driving for Haas. They were both unable to complete a lap in Q3, which is why they were just 9th and 10th. They had no lap time, but they had got through to Q3. Kvyat P11, Perez P12, Raikkonen P13, Sainz P14, Norris P15, Stroll P16, Russell P17, Kubica P18, Giovinazzi P19. He was allowed to race by the stewards after he'd failed to set a representative time in qualifying, and Albon P20. Albon crashed in free practice 3 of the 2019 Grand Prix. He suffered a 49G impact rear first into the exit of the final corner of the lap. So he didn't take part in qualifying due to the damage. He was allowed to race, but he started from the pit lane for changing his survival cell and also received a 5-place penalty for an unscheduled gearbox change. So that is everything that I was going to tell you ahead of this weekend's Chinese Grand Prix. Just a little bit of information. It's not even that important really, but there will be a slight change with the recap that I'm going to film because I am actually undergoing abdominal surgery, so I will be recovering from that. So there might be a bit of a delay getting out the recap to you. I'll just have to see what's going on with that, but there will be a recap for the Chinese Grand Prix. I just don't know when and where yet, but yeah, there will be one. And I'm also going to be able to use my recovery time to put more time and effort into the TikTok, which I'm very excited for because obviously working full time, that's 40 hours a week that I don't have, that I'm gonna have. So that's exciting. So yeah, I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do let me know. Like, rate, comment, subscribe, share the podcast, join me over on the TikTok, and I'll see you very soon with another episode, and I'll definitely see you over on the TikTok as well. Thank you again, and I will see you soon. Bye!